Well, this week's Democratic debate will go on as scheduled after the candidates vowed to boycott the event to support union protesters. There was a labor dispute at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. That's where the debate will be held. But now there's a tentative agreement that's been reached. So the debate will go on as planned. Campus workers thank the Democratic candidates for their support in helping them reach that agreement. For more, I want to bring in Joel Payne. He's a CBSN political contributor and Democratic strategist. So, Joel, this week's debate comes as there are 9 Democratic presidential candidates who have written letters to the DNC asking them to change the rules regarding who can be qualified for these debates. Do you think their criticism is valid here?
I think their concern is valid. I think all Democrats want to make sure that there's a diverse pool of candidates, that candidates are encouraged to take a diverse path to winning the nomination. I've said frequently that the road to the Democratic nomination is going to run right through the heart of Black America. And I think if you look at the South Carolina primary and some of those other kind of second-tier early states, I think that's certainly going to be borne out to be true. But you ultimately can't control who voters end up responding to. Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and most recently Deval Patrick, these are candidates that are well-funded, that are well-supported within the Democratic Party, that have had a lot of success in the past. Kamala Harris, even this cycle, actually was leading the field and was one of the top fundraisers. So I don't think that there is a question of whether or not these African-American candidates are being given a fair shot within the system. I think it's just a matter of how these candidates are playing in this field. I think if Barack Obama was running this time around, you probably would have him on the debate stage in 2 days. Unfortunately, I just think that the candidates and the way that the field is setting up has not borne out in their favor, and I understand the frustration that those campaigns have expressed.
These candidates, Cory Booker in particular, recently has been so vocal about not being able to really get that traction and the support also from the DNC because of these rules. Give me a sense, Joel, why do you think it is that they haven't been able to get traction in these communities, particularly the African-American community?
Well, look, it's challenging. I think each election cycle is dynamic and different. This election cycle is pretty clear that all Democratic voters, but particularly African-American voters, view Donald Trump as an existential threat. And when you view someone as an existential threat, you are going to be less likely to do something that you might deem risky or politically risky. While I do not think it is risky, while I have seen in my lifetime, obviously, that Democrats have successfully nominated an African-American for president, that they've successfully nominated a woman who has earned the most votes in the history of the presidential nominating process, right? I don't think that that's risky, but it's clear a lot of Democratic primary voters do. And I think that they are reacting upon some of that fear. And I think that's why you have a situation where a Cory Booker or Kamala Harris did not gain the traction they wanted. Also, and look, this is just kind of the tough stakes here. The candidate tends to kind of the field tends to weed out the strongest candidates from the weakest candidates. And unfortunately, those campaigns were not able to endure or have not been able to endure to this point. But if you're Cory Booker, there's still a lot of encouraging polling and there's a lot of encouraging facts on the ground that suggest that you still got a chance at this. And so I think Booker and his team still have a lot of good things to lean upon, and we'll see what happens here over the last 75 or so days before Iowa.
I want to ask you also about Iowa. Yesterday, Senator Elizabeth Warren addressed reports that Michael Bloomberg made sexist remarks and created a culture degrading to women. Bloomberg's denied the reports, but she called on Bloomberg to respond. Here's what she had to say.
When women raise concerns like this, we have to pay attention. We have to listen to them. And if Michael Bloomberg has made comments like this, then he has to answer for them.
Do you think that this is a serious liability for Bloomberg's campaign? Is this something that he can overcome?
Oh, I think it's a serious liability, but it's just a serious issue. Look, I know that the natural comparison here is to Donald Trump and some of the issues that he had around women and women talking about his behavior and, frankly, some alleging behavior that was even illegal. I think there's a difference between how the Democratic Party and the Republican Party reacts to this. I think Mike Bloomberg, running for the Democratic nomination, is going to be facing some stiff headwinds in terms of how he responded here. I think, as with anything, you want to get out early and you want to get out with the facts. If he did something wrong, I think that he needs to make amends for it quickly, apologize and move on. And I think if he didn't, I think he needs to swiftly push back. But I think this is very much an issue of which party are you in. Unfortunately, I'm not even saying that as a shot to my Republican friends, but it's clear that Republican voters demonstrated that those issues around Donald Trump did not bother them last cycle. I don't think Mike Bloomberg is going to have that same environment to operate within this time around.
You know, I want to look ahead to the general election. The president managed to secure 2 trade deals and is taking credit for the state of the economy. I want to play for you what he said yesterday.
We've had a very big day in the stock market today, as you know. That will be 133 days where we set a new record, and that's fantastic. Our jobs numbers have come in fantastically well, really well.
How do Democrats counter that message, Joel, at this point?
Yeah, this is interesting, Rena. I would love to try a thing out. If I was a Republican, I would beg President Trump. I'd say, President Trump, for 30 consecutive days, just say positive things about the economy and see what happens to your poll numbers. Because I'd bet you his poll numbers probably tick up 3 to 5 points just based on that. The fact that the president doesn't have the political discipline to constantly beat the drum on this economy, which I would even acknowledge is flawed, but overall the story is a good one to tell to voters. But the president does not have that political discipline. That's not his temperament. He wants to fight. He wants to respond to every gripe, every pushback that the other side has. And so for Democrats, I think that you're less worried about the economy because you don't have a candidate on the other side who is going to make you pay the price for not paying attention to the economy. Donald Trump wants to talk about, it seems like, everything else but the economy, which makes every Democrat running for president very happy.
Interesting to hear you say it. By the way, Joel, congratulations coming on board formally as a political contributor. We're grateful to have you on staff as we go into this new campaign cycle. So thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Rena. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.